Why Gen Z has given up, the generation that can't afford life. I'm 27 years old. I have a degree. I have a job. I make $58,000 a year, and I've completely given up. Not on life, on the American dream. I'm never buying a house. I'm probably never getting married. Kids? Forget it. Retirement? I'll work until I die. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. I'm not lazy. I'm not making bad choices. I did everything they told me to do. I went to college, got good grades, got a job, worked hard. And I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, still drowning in student loans, still watching my parents' generation ask me why I can't just work harder. But I'm not alone. 67% of young Americans have completely given up on home ownership. 44% have given up on having kids. And for the first time in American history, an entire generation will be poorer than their parents. This isn't just frustration. This is an entire generation watching the American dream die in real time. And nobody is talking about why. Today, I'm breaking down exactly what happened, how we got here, and why millions of young Americans aren't just struggling. They've stopped trying altogether. This is the generation that gave up, and their reasons will shock you. The housing trap. They told us to just save more. Let me introduce you to Jessica Martinez. Jessica is 29 years old. She's a registered nurse in Denver, Colorado. She makes $71,000 a year. That's well above the national average. By every definition, she should be successful. Jessica has been saving for a down payment for 6 years. 6 years of skipping vacations. 6 years of driving a 12-year-old Honda. 6 years of eating at home while watching friends post their brunches on Instagram. She saved $42,000. And here's the punch in the gut. The median home in Denver costs $625,000. She needs $125,000 for a 20% down payment. At her current savings rate, she'll be 47 years old before she can afford a house, in a city where she saves lives for a living. But it gets worse. While Jessica was saving that $42,000 over 6 years, home prices in Denver went up by $187,000. She's falling further behind every single month while doing everything right. I stopped checking Zillow, Jessica told me. It was making me depressed. Every time I saved another $1,000, prices went up by $5,000. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up. Jessica isn't an outlier. She is the pattern. Let me show you the math that broke an entire generation. In 1980, the median home cost $47,000. The median income was $21,000. That's a ratio of 2.2 to 1. You needed about 2 years of salary to buy a house. In 2000, the median home was $119,000. Median income was $42,000. Ratio 2.8 to 1. Getting harder, but still possible. In 2026, the median home is $420,000. Median income for young workers, $52,000. Ratio 8.1 to 1. You now need 8 years of salary to buy what your parents bought with 2. And nobody's salary went up 4 times. Here's what really makes this devastating. In 1985, the average 30-year-old had a 45% chance of owning a home. In 2026, that number is 26%. We've gone backwards by almost half. I talked to Daniel Park, a 31-year-old software developer in Austin, Texas. Software developer, one of the good careers. He makes $95,000 a year. I moved to Austin because everyone said it was still affordable. That was 2021. The average home was $450,000. I thought that was insane. But I started saving. 4 years later, average home is $580,000. I make one of the highest salaries of any of my friends. And I rent a 1-bedroom apartment with my girlfriend because we can't afford anything else. When someone making $95,000 in tech can't afford a starter home, the system isn't struggling. The system is broken. But here's what really made Gen Z give up. They watched in real time. They watched their parents buy houses for $150,000 in 2010 that are now worth $650,000. They watched investors buy up entire neighborhoods and convert them to rentals. They watched corporations like BlackRock and Invitation Homes purchase 44,000 homes in a single year. They didn't just get priced out, they watched themselves get priced out, one Zillow listing at a time. And eventually they stopped looking. The student loan trap. We were 17 when we signed. Let's talk about the thing nobody warned them about. Student loans. I want you to meet Tyler Washington. Tyler is 28 years old. He graduated from a state university in 2020 with a degree in business administration. Solid degree, respectable school. Tyler's student loan balance when he graduated? $67,000. Tyler's student loan balance today, after 6 years of payments? $71,000. He's been paying for 6 years and he owes more than when he started. I pay $580 every single month, Tyler explained. That's more than most car payments. And every month the balance barely moves. Sometimes it goes up. I'll be 52 years old when this is paid off. Nuss if I'm lucky. This isn't unusual, this is standard. The average Gen Z graduate carries $37,000 in student debt. The average interest rate is 6.8%. At minimum payments, that $37,000 becomes $52,000 over the repayment period. But here's what makes it truly insane. Most of these people were 17 or 18 when they signed for these loans. No bank in America would give a 17-year-old a $50,000 loan to start a business. No credit card company would approve a teenager for a $100,000 credit line. But somehow, we decided it was perfectly fine to hand teenagers 6 figures of debt for a degree that might not even lead to a job. Rachel Simmons is 26. She wanted to be a social worker, help kids, make a difference. Her student loan balance, $89,000. Her starting salary in social work, $42,000. I did the math when I got my first job offer, Rachel said. After taxes and loan payments, I'd have about $1,400 left for rent, food, transportation, everything, in Chicago. That's not possible. That's not living. Rachel is now a marketing coordinator. She doesn't help kids anymore. She couldn't afford to. I gave up on my dream career before I turned 25. Not because I didn't want it, because I literally could not afford to do the work I went to school for. And this is happening everywhere. Teachers leaving because they can't survive on teacher salaries with teacher debt. Social workers becoming salespeople, nurses working double shifts just to tread water. Meanwhile, baby boomers paid $1,200 per year for state college in 1980. Adjusted for financial aid and everything, the average student paid $2,800 per year in 1980. One that same education now costs $22,000 per year at the same public universities. That's an 800% increase. Did salaries go up 800%? You already know the answer. And here's the psychological damage nobody talks about. Every month when that payment comes out, Gen Z is reminded that they're behind. Every month, they're reminded that they started adult life in a hole. Every month, they do the math again and realize they're decades away from being free. Is it any wonder they've given up on buying houses? They're still paying for the education that was supposed to help them afford houses. The trap was set before they even knew they were playing. Math that broke them. Where does the money go? Let me walk you through the monthly budget of a typical Gen Z worker. This is Marcus Chen. He's 26. He lives in Phoenix, Arizona, not New York. Not San Francisco, Phoenix, a normal city with normal costs. Marcus makes $54,000 a year. That's $4,500 per month before taxes. After federal tax, state tax, Social Security, and Medicare, he takes home $3,400. Here's where it goes. Rent for a one-bedroom apartment, $1,450. That's 43% of his take-home income, gone before he's bought a single item. Car payment, $520 because Phoenix has no public transit, and his job is 23 miles away. He didn't buy a luxury car. He bought a 2022 Honda Civic with 45,000 miles on it. Car insurance, $185. He's 26 with a clean driving record. This is just what it costs now. Health insurance, $280. His employer covers part of it, but his share is still $280 per month for a plan with a $3,000 deductible. Student loans, $340. The minimum payment on his $31,000 balance. Phone, $85, basic plan. No unlimited data. Internet, $65. Required for his job because he's hybrid. Utilities, $140. Electric in Phoenix is brutal in summer. That's $3,065 in fixed costs. Every single month, non-negotiable. Marcus has $335 left over for food, for clothes, for gas, for literally everything else. $335 per month, $11 per day. I don't eat out, Marcus told me. I don't go to bars, I don't take Ubers, I don't do anything, and I still run out of money by the 25th of every month. And here's the thing, Marcus isn't poor. He makes more than the median income for his age. He's supposed to be middle class, but middle class now means choosing between groceries and gas money. Let me show you what's changed. In 1985, the average American spent 23% of their income on housing. Today, that number is 41%, almost double. In 1985, healthcare cost families about $1,700 per year. Today, it's $24,000 per year, 14 times higher. In 1985, the average car payment was $190 in today's dollars. Now it's $738, nearly 4 times higher. The math doesn't work anymore. It's not that Gen Z is spending irresponsibly, it's that the basics cost more than they earn. And here's the real kicker. Wages haven't kept up, not even close. In 1970, minimum wage adjusted for productivity would be $26 per hour today. Actual minimum wage? $7.25 federal. Some states are better, but most Gen Z workers make between $15 to $20 per hour. Half of what productivity says they should earn. The money went somewhere, just not to them. Healthcare roulette. One emergency away from bankruptcy. I need to tell you about Brittany Lawson. Brittany is 25. She's a graphic designer in Atlanta making $48,000 a year. She has health insurance through her job. She pays $240 per month for it. In September 2025, she went to the emergency room with severe abdominal pain. She spent 6 hours there, had a CT scan. They diagnosed her with an ovarian cyst, gave her pain medication, and sent her home. The bill, $14,700. Her insurance covered $8,200. Her responsibility, $6,500. That's 13% of her entire annual income, wiped out in one afternoon. I have insurance, Brittany said. I pay for it every month, and I still owe more than I make in 2 months for a cyst they said would go away on its own. Brittany set up a payment plan, $200 per month for 32 months, on top of her student loans, on top of everything else. And here's what keeps her up at night. What if something worse happens? What if I break a leg, get cancer? I'd lose everything. Not in a dramatic way, just slowly. I'd just lose everything. This fear isn't irrational, it's statistical. 66% of all bankruptcies in America are tied to medical bills. 2/3 of people who lose everything financially lose it because they got sick. And it's not just the uninsured. 72% of people who declare medical bankruptcy had insurance when they got sick. Insurance didn't save them. Gen Z watched this happen to their parents. They watched their older siblings get crushed by medical debt. And they learned something. Don't get sick. If you get sick, don't go to the doctor. If you go to the doctor, pray it's nothing serious. That's not healthcare. That's Russian roulette. Alejandro Ruiz is 27. He's been putting off a surgery his doctor says he needs for his shoulder. For 3 years. I know I should get it fixed. It hurts every day. But I saw the estimate. $23,000 after insurance. I don't have that. I might never have that. So Alejandro lives with pain, works through it, hopes it doesn't get worse, because the alternative is financial ruin. This is the system Gen Z inherited. And they've adapted in the only way they can, by giving up on the idea that healthcare is accessible to them. The career lie. Just work hard and you'll succeed. Here's the promise Gen Z was sold. Go to college, get a degree, work hard. You'll have a career, you'll move up, you'll succeed. Here's the reality. Emily Tran has a master's degree in marketing. She graduated in 2022 with a 3.8 GPA. She applied to 247 jobs before getting a single offer. Her first salary, $46,000, for a master's degree, eyeing in one of the largest job markets in America. My mom couldn't understand why I didn't have a job lined up after graduation, Emily said. She got her bachelor's in 1991 and had 3 job offers before she even finished. I sent out 247 applications, got 12 responses, 4 interviews, 1 offer. The job market has completely transformed, and nobody warned them. Entry-level jobs now require 2 to 3 years of experience. Unpaid internships, which used to be illegal exploitation that somehow became mandatory, are the only way to get your foot in the door. And even then, competition is brutal. 237 applicants. That's the average number of people who apply for a single job posting in 2026. 237 people fighting for one position. And the jobs that do exist, they pay less in real terms than they did in 2000. Starting salaries for college graduates in 2000, I adjusted for inflation, $58,000. Starting salaries in 2026, $52,000. New graduates today make less than their parents did. Kevin Martinez graduated with a computer science degree. Computer science. The golden ticket. The sure thing. His first job offer, $68,000 in Seattle. Sounds good, right? Except rent in Seattle averages $2,100 per month. His take-home after taxes is about $4,300. Rent alone takes 49% of his income. Everyone told me CS was the path, Kevin said, and compared to my friends in other majors, I'm doing well. But doing well means I have roommates, don't own a car, and still feel like I'm barely getting by. This was supposed to be the winning hand. The winning hand now means survival, not success. Survival. And here's what broke them psychologically. They did everything right. They studied hard, went to college, got degrees, applied to hundreds of jobs, took whatever they could get, worked overtime, didn't complain. And they're still losing. When you do everything right and still fail, eventually you stop trying. Not because you're lazy, because you learned that trying doesn't matter. The game is rigged. And an entire generation finally stopped pretending otherwise. The psychological toll. Not lazy, defeated. Let's talk about what happens to a person when hope dies slowly. Dr. Amanda Chen is a psychologist in Los Angeles who specializes in treating adults under 35. She's been practicing for 15 years, and she told me something that stopped me cold. In the early 2000s, my young adult patients came to me with anxiety, fear of failure, worry about the future, normal stuff. Now, they come to me with nothing. Not anxiety, not fear, just an emptiness. They've stopped caring. And that's so much harder to treat. This has a name. Psychologists call it learned helplessness. It's what happens when you try and fail, until your brain concludes that trying is pointless. Your mind literally stops believing that your actions can change your outcomes. And an entire generation has learned this lesson together. Meet Jasmine Foster. She's 24. She works at a marketing agency in Charlotte. She makes $47,000 a year. I used to have goals, Jasmine said. Like actual life goals. Buy a house by 30, get married, have kids, travel. Now I just have survival goals, pay rent, don't get sick, make it to Friday. She paused. When did I become someone who measures success by making it through another week? This is happening everywhere. A study from the American Psychological Association found that Gen Z reports higher stress, worse mental health, and lower life satisfaction than any generation ever measured. Ever. In the history of modern psychology. And when researchers asked why, the answers weren't complicated. I can't afford to live. I did everything right and I'm still struggling. What's the point of planning for a future I can't afford? This isn't a mental health crisis caused by social media or phone addiction. This is a mental health crisis caused by economic reality. When you can't afford a therapist but desperately need one, that's not a personal failing, that's a system failure. When you cry in your car after work because you don't know how you'll make rent, that's not weakness, that's survival under impossible conditions. And when an entire generation collectively decides that hoping hurts too much, that's not laziness. That's learned helplessness on a societal scale. The great opt-out. Why bother? Here's what's happening right now across America. Birth rates are at record lows, not because Gen Z doesn't want kids. 78% of them say they want children someday, but 44% say they can't afford to have them. And many have given up on the idea entirely. Marriage rates are plummeting. The average age of first marriage in 1970 was 21. Today, it's 30 and climbing. Not because Gen Z doesn't want relationships, but because weddings cost $35,000, and who can afford that when you can't afford groceries? Home buying has essentially stopped for this generation. They're renting, they'll rent forever, they know it. They've accepted it. And here's the newest trend that should terrify everyone. Quiet quitting has evolved into bare minimum existence. Andrew Miller is 29. He works at a tech company in Seattle. He makes $72,000, which sounds good until you factor in Seattle costs. I used to hustle, Andrew said. Work late, take on extra projects, try to get promoted. Then I did the math. If I got promoted and made $85,000, I'd still be struggling. I'd still never afford a house. I'd just be struggling with a fancier title. So Andrew stopped trying. Not at life. At the game. I do the minimum my job requires. I don't chase promotions. I don't save for a house I'll never own. I spend my money on experiences because that's all that's real. I've given up on the big things. Now I just try to enjoy small moments before I die. He's 29 years old. And he's already planning for a life without achievement. This is the great opt-out. An entire generation deciding that if the game is rigged, they'll just stop playing. No hustle culture, no 5-year plans, no American dream, just survival, just small pleasures, just making it through. And honestly, I understand why. What happens next? We're all going to feel this. Here's what nobody is talking about. This doesn't affect just Gen Z. When an entire generation gives up on home ownership, the housing market will eventually collapse. Who will buy the houses baby boomers are trying to sell? Not the generation that can't afford them. When an entire generation stops having children, the economy contracts. Fewer consumers, fewer workers, fewer taxpayers. Social Security already struggling. I will face a crisis. When an entire generation stops believing in the future, innovation slows. Who's building the next company when young people can't afford to take risks? Who's developing the next technology when STEM graduates are drowning in debt? This isn't Gen Z's problem, it's everyone's problem. We just haven't felt it yet. Marcus Rodriguez is an economist I interviewed for this video. His prediction: within 10 years, we'll see a major economic restructuring, not because anyone planned it, but because a generation that can't participate in the economy will force the economy to change. Whether that change is positive or catastrophic depends entirely on whether we wake up now. But here's what makes this different from past generations. Gen Z isn't protesting. They're not marching. They're not demanding change. They've just stopped. They've stopped hoping, stopped planning, stopped asking for help that never comes. And that silence is louder than any protest could ever be. Conclusion. So what now? I've been researching this topic for weeks, talking to people, reading studies, crunching numbers, and every single person I interviewed asked me the same question. What's the point of this video? What changes? Honestly, I don't know if anything changes, but here's what I hope. I hope that if you're older watching this, you understand now. This generation isn't lazy. They aren't entitled. They aren't making bad choices. They inherited an economy that their parents broke. They inherited housing prices their parents inflated. They inherited student loans their parents didn't have to pay. They inherited healthcare costs their parents never faced. And when they complain, they're told to work harder by people who bought houses on single incomes with no degrees. So if you're a boomer or Gen X watching this, I hope you stop asking, why don't you just work harder? Because they are working hard, harder than any generation before, for less. And if you're Gen Z watching this, I hope you know, you're not broken. The system is. Your feelings of hopelessness aren't weakness. They're a rational response to an irrational situation. You're not failing, you're surviving. And survival under these conditions is harder than any previous generation had to face. I'm not going to tell you to keep hoping. That feels hollow. But I will tell you this, you're not alone. There are 70 million of you feeling exactly the same thing. And eventually, one way or another, things will have to change. Because systems that don't serve the majority eventually collapse. The question isn't whether change is coming, it's whether we guide it or let it crash into us. If this video resonated with you, drop a comment. Tell me your story. Are you one of the 70 million who gave up? Are you still fighting? Do you see a way out? I want to hear from you, not because it'll change anything, but because sometimes being heard is the only thing that keeps us going. This is the generation that gave up. Not because they were weak, but because the dream they were promised was never meant for them.